I used to think our marriage was built on the kind of quiet strength you don't see in movies, the kind that doesn't need dramatic music or grand gestures, the kind that survives the gray days and bills and burnt toast mornings. We were steady, simple, dependable, like a favorite sweater with a few frayed threads that you never bother fixing because it still keeps you warm. I thought that steadiness was love, and maybe it was, at least for a while. We had our rituals: Saturday morning pancakes, the plant on the kitchen windowsill that we named Henry and kept forgetting to water, evening walks around the block where we would talk about everything and nothing. She used to hum softly in the bathroom while brushing her teeth, a little melody she never realized she repeated, and I loved that sound more than any song on the radio. I thought we were the kind of couple who didn't need to worry about storms because we'd already learned how to dance in drizzle. But cracks don't appear with warning labels. They start small, like a chip mug you keep using because it's still functional. Her phone started living face down on the counter. She laughed at texts she wouldn't explain. She started taking showers as soon as she got home, blaming the heat or the gym or work stress, and I believed her because that's what you do when you trust someone. You accept their words as truth even when your gut whispers otherwise. I told myself it was just a stressful season. Her job had gotten demanding, late nights, last-minute meetings, tight deadlines. I cooked dinner for two and wrapped hers in foil when she came home late. I rubbed her shoulders and told her she was amazing, and she'd smile with tired eyes and kiss my cheek. I thought I was being supportive, a good husband, a safe harbor. I didn't realize I was also making it easy for her to hide. I began noticing little things I couldn't unsee. The scent of cologne that didn't belong to me, a new lipstick shade I'd never seen before, her laughter that felt rehearsed when she talked about her coworkers. I told myself stories to make it all make sense. I blamed myself for being paranoid. I blamed work stress, hormones, the weather, anything but the possibility that my wife's heart wasn't entirely mine anymore. One evening, I came home early. Traffic was light, and my last meeting had been canceled. The house was quiet, the kind of stillness that feels heavy. I put my keys down gently, listening. From down the hallway, I heard her voice, soft and low, like she was talking to someone I didn't want me to hear. I couldn't make out all the words, but one phrase cut through. Just one night. I froze. My heart pounded so loud it drowned out everything else. She laughed softly, a sound I hadn't heard directed at me in months, and then there was silence. I turned on the faucet in the kitchen to cover my presence, pretending I'd just come home. She emerged a few minutes later, her hair perfectly in place, her smile too calm. She kissed me on the cheek and asked me about my day, like nothing was wrong. I played along, my voice steady, but inside, I felt something shift. That night, I lay in bed beside her, staring at the ceiling. I thought about the way she held her phone close, the way her smile didn't quite reach her eyes anymore. I remembered the phrase, just one night, and it repeated in my head like a broken record. I wanted to ask her about it, but fear glued my mouth shut. Fear of hearing the truth. Fear of losing the illusion that we were okay. Over the next few days, I started watching her more closely. Not in an obvious way, but like a detective, gathering clues. She wore a new dress I'd never seen before. She changed her hairstyle slightly. She was happier, lighter, but not with me. It felt like I was living with a stranger wearing my wife's face. The tension built slowly, like water rising in a glass, and I couldn't stop it. I noticed she was texting more at night, her face lit by the blue glow of her phone while I pretended to sleep. I started waking up earlier, leaving for work before her, just to get some air.
I drove around aimlessly, trying to quiet the gnawing suspicion that was turning me into someone I didn't recognize. One night, I walked into the living room and caught her quickly sliding her phone under a pillow. She smiled, too brightly, asked if I wanted tea, and I felt my chest tighten. I wasn't stupid. I wasn't paranoid. Something was happening, and she wasn't even trying to hide it anymore. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay awake replaying every conversation, every laugh, every night she came home late, every excuse she gave. The memories piled up like evidence in a case I didn't want to prosecute. My stomach churned with anger and heartbreak, but also a strange calm. I needed proof. I needed the truth, spelled out so clearly that even she couldn't deny it. The next day, I left work early. I sat in the car outside our house, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. I felt like I was standing on the edge of something huge, something that would change everything forever. Part of me wanted to turn the key, drive away and never come back. Another part wanted to go inside and rip the truth out of her hands. I chose neither. I waited. I watched. And for the first time in my life, I felt like a stranger in my own home, in my own marriage. I didn't know it then, but this was just the beginning of the story.
The morning after her confession was gray in every way that mattered. The sky was a dull, washed-out color, the kind that made the streets look lifeless and the house itself felt like a stranger's. It wasn't just quiet, it was suffocating. The coffee machine hummed like it always did, but the sound grated on my nerves. There was a mug on the counter, half full, her lipstick on the rim. She had left for work as if the night before had been just another conversation, not a confession that detonated our life. Her words get replaying in my head. It was just one night. He was my dream man. It didn't mean anything. I couldn't get over the calmness in her voice. No tears, no guilt, just a soft, almost detached tone, like she was telling me she'd accidentally broken a plate. Except this wasn't a plate. It was my entire world. I tried to keep busy that morning, but every little thing reminded me of her. The sweater draped over the back of the chair, the faint scent of her perfume on the hallway rug, even the toothpaste cap left unscrewed in the bathroom. She wasn't here, but it felt like she was haunting the place, and I was the ghost who didn't belong. I sat at the kitchen table with my phone in hand, scrolling through photos of us, our wedding day, vacations, random selfies. I used to see happiness in those images. Now they looked staged, like someone else's memories. My stomach churned at the thought that she had been dreaming about someone else while we were building this life together. By noon, I couldn't stand the house anymore. The silence was so loud it hurt my ears. I grabbed my keys and went for a drive. No destination in mind, just an overwhelming urge to get away from the place that used to feel safe. I drove past our favorite park, the coffee shop where she first told me she loved me, the bookstore where she'd spend hours reading. All of it felt fake now, like a movie set abandoned after filming. I ended up parked in front of a strip mall staring at nothing, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly they ached. Anger pulsed through me in waves, but underneath it was humiliation, this raw, gnawing shame that I hadn't been enough. She hadn't just betrayed me, she'd chosen someone else over me, someone who wasn't even part of her life beyond that dream. I drove aimlessly until the sun dipped below the horizon, painting everything in deep blue. The idea that she might not come home tonight started creeping into my mind, and with it came a kind of panic I couldn't shake. I wanted her home, but I also didn't. I wanted answers, but I was terrified of them. She didn't come home. No text, no call, just nothing. I sat in the living room staring at the door, the TV muted. Around midnight, I heard a car door slam outside and jumped to my feet, my heart pounding. I peeked through the blinds, but it was just the neighbor getting out of his car. The disappointment felt like a punch in the chest. She wasn't coming back tonight.
Deep down, I knew it wasn't just tonight. Something had shifted. Permanently. I tried to sleep on the couch, but her scent lingered on the pillows, a cruel reminder. I threw one across the room, but the memories were everywhere. I could see her smile when I closed my eyes, hear her laugh in the hum of the refrigerator. I hated it. I hated that I missed her. At 3 a.m., pacing the living room, I noticed her laptop on the desk. She'd left it unlocked, a mistake I'd never expect from her. I hesitated, my hand hovering over the lid. I had two choices: respect her privacy or finally learn the truth I already suspected. I opened it. At first, I didn't even know what I was looking for. Maybe an explanation, maybe a hint that she still cared. But what I found made me sick. Message threads, dozens of them, reeks of planning that one night. She had sent him pictures, the kind she swore she only took for me. She had mocked me in her messages, joked about how predictable I was, how I'd never see it coming. My stomach twisted as I scrolled further. She had been dreaming about him for months. This wasn't a slip. This was a choice. I slammed the laptop shut, my hands trembling. My breath came in ragged gasps, and I felt like I was drowning in my own living room. That was when something inside me broke. Or maybe it hardened. I wasn't going to cry. I wasn't going to beg. No more please come home, no more waiting for explanations. She had made her decision, now it was my turn. I sat there in the dim light, staring at the clock. 3:27 a.m. My heart was racing, but my thoughts were cold. I started planning. Not revenge. Not yet. Just control. For the first time since this nightmare started, I felt like I had power, and I wasn't about to let it go.
The third day felt like a blur. Like time itself had decided to stop working properly. Morning light crept through the blinds, but it didn't feel like morning. My body was awake, but my mind was somewhere between dreams and nightmares, caught replaying everything she'd said, every message I'd read on her laptop. It was just one night. He was my dream man. It didn't mean anything. Those words echoed so often they stopped sounding like words and became something heavier, a constant hum under my skin that I couldn't shake. She still hadn't come home. Not even a text. Not even a lie to soothe me. The empty side of the bed felt like a canyon, cold and uninviting, a reminder that the person I trusted most had chosen someone else over me. It wasn't just that she'd cheated. It wasn't even the physical act. It was the premeditation, the planning, the way she'd laughed in those messages, the way she'd spoken about me like I was some harmless fool who wouldn't notice. I dragged myself into the shower, hoping hot water would wash off the stench of betrayal. It didn't. It only made me feel rawer, more awake. I could see her face in my mind, the way her lips curved when she was texting him, probably the same smile she used to give me years ago. I slammed my fist against the shower wall. The pain felt grounding. By late afternoon, I decided I couldn't stay in that house any longer. I grabbed my keys and drove with no destination in mind, just like the day before. Except this time, I didn't end up near a strip mall or the coffee shop where she'd once told me she loved me. This time, I drove to her office. I didn't even realize where I was going until I parked across the street from the building and saw her car sitting there. She'd lied about working late before, but now she wasn't even pretending. She was there. She was at work, and she still hadn't come home. I sat in my car, gripping the steering wheel, watching the windows like a predator staking out prey. People came and went. She didn't appear. My phone stayed silent. I stared at the office doors until my vision blurred. Was she even inside? Or had she left her car there as part of some elaborate excuse? I hated that I was thinking like this. I hated that she'd turned me into someone who doubted every word she said. As the sun dipped behind the skyline, I finally saw her emerge. She looked normal, like nothing had happened, like she wasn't living in the wreckage of what she'd done. She was smiling at something on her phone as she walked to her car. She didn't even glance around, didn't even notice me sitting there just across the street, watching her like a ghost haunting his own life. I followed her. I told myself it was stupid, dangerous even, but I couldn't stop. She didn't go home. She drove across town, weaving through side streets I didn't recognize, until she pulled up in front of an apartment building. My heart dropped into my stomach. I knew. I didn't need to see him to know she was here for him. I parked a few spaces down, my hands gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles ached. I watched her get out of the car, fix her hair in the reflection of the window, and walk up the steps, like she'd done it 1,000 times before. She didn't knock. She didn't text. She just went inside. My vision blurred again, this time from rage. My breath came fast, shallow, like I'd just run a marathon. I wanted to storm in there, drag her out, scream at her until the entire city knew what she'd done. But something in me stopped. Not because I didn't want to, not because I was scared, but because I knew this wasn't the moment. Not yet. I drove home in silence. The steering wheel felt slick from sweat. My chest felt heavy like I was holding a scream I couldn't release. When I got back to the house, I sat in the driveway for what felt like an hour, staring at the front door, imagining her walking through it like nothing had happened. Inside, the house felt colder than ever. I went to her laptop again. I told myself I wouldn't, but I did. More messages, more laughter, more secrets I wasn't meant to see. And then I saw something that made my stomach twist. A photo. Not of them together, but of him. She'd saved it. She actually saved it. I closed the laptop and stared at the ceiling. The glow of the screen burned into my retinas. My wife was gone. Even if her things are here. She wasn't mine anymore. And that realization didn't bring sadness. It brought something much darker. I poured myself a drink, then another. I sat in the kitchen with the lights off, the house silent around me, and I planned. Not revenge, not yet. Just next steps. How to move forward. How to survive the humiliation that clung to me like smoke. By 2 a.m., I was lying on the couch, staring at the ceiling, my heart pounding so loudly I thought it might wake the neighbors. Every sound from outside made me flinch. Was she coming home? Would she waltz in with that fake smile, smelling like him, pretending nothing happened? The door never opened. And that's when I realized something important. She didn't even care enough to lie anymore. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a one-time thing. This was a choice. A deliberate, calculated choice. And if she could make her choice, I could make mine. I was done being the fool. I didn't sleep that night. I lay there on the couch, staring at the ceiling, her perfume lingering faintly in the air like a ghost I couldn't exorcise. My mind was a whirlwind, anger, grief, humiliation, all swirling together until I couldn't tell one from the other. But somewhere between the pounding of my heart and the buzzing in my head, something new surfaced. Resolve. I was done playing the fool. Morning light spilled into the house, but it felt gray, muted, like the world outside was grieving with me. She still hadn't come home. I showered, dressed, and made coffee I didn't drink. Then I sat at the kitchen table, her laptop open in front of me again. My hands didn't shake this time. I wasn't looking for closure anymore. I was gathering ammunition. The messages I'd skimmed from the night before, the ones that had made me sick to my stomach, became evidence. Screenshots, dates, times, locations, it was all there. She'd mapped out this affair like a vacation plan, like a child circling toys in a catalog, something to look forward to. She'd mentioned the hotel. I found the receipts buried in her email, a confirmation for a business conference that didn't exist. The room was reserved under his name, but she'd paid for it. She'd even asked for something romantic in the booking notes. I felt the blood rush to my face, hot and heavy. Romantic. For him. That word looped in my head like a bad song as I opened another folder on her laptop. Photos. Hundreds of them. Most were innocent. Everyday life snapshots, vacations, dinners, our dog when he was still alive. But tucked in between those memories were the pictures she'd sent him. Intimate ones. Ones I thought were mine alone. My vision blurred for a second, not from tears, but from pure, unfiltered rage. She had dismantled our life and laid it out like a buffet for him to feast on. I closed the laptop carefully, almost tenderly, like it was a dangerous weapon I wasn't ready to fire. I couldn't let my anger decide my next step. Not yet. I needed time to think, to plan. Revenge wasn't just about anger. It was about control, about making her feel the same helplessness she'd inflicted on me. But I wasn't going to scream or beg or break things. I was going to be cold, calculated, surgical. I grabbed my car keys and drove with no destination, just to get out of the house before I exploded. The streets were busy. People rushing to work, sipping coffee, listening to music in their cars. Normal life went on while mine was crumbling, and I hated them for it. I hated their smiles, their routines, their stability. I stopped at a park we used to visit, back when life felt simple. The bench where we sat years ago was still there, and I dropped onto it, elbows on my knees, staring at the ground. I thought about her laugh, her touch, the way she used to lean into me when she was tired. I thought about the first time I told her I loved her, how she smiled like I'd just given her the world. And I thought about how easily she handed that world to someone else. It was almost noon when my phone buzzed. Her name lit up the screen. My chest tightened. I didn't answer. A text followed. I'm staying with a friend tonight. I let out a bitter laugh. Space. That was rich. She'd taken space all right. Space in another man's bed, space in his arms, space away from the vows we'd made. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened a new note on my phone and started writing a plan. I didn't know exactly what form my revenge would take yet, but I knew one thing for certain. It wouldn't be loud. It would be quiet, devastating, and permanent. I started with a list of her weaknesses, her reputation at work, immaculate but fragile, her family, traditional, judgmental, with a deep disdain for scandal, and then there was him, the man she called her dream. I didn't even know his full name yet, but that was temporary. The plan didn't need to be rushed. The worst thing I could do now was act impulsively. She'd expect rage. She'd expect tears. She wouldn't expect silence. I went home that evening and cooked dinner like nothing was wrong. I set a plate at the table. She didn't come home. I didn't text her. I didn't call. I just ate in silence. Every bite, another layer of calm settling over me. That night I started digging. Her phone records, social media, work schedules, friend stories. Piece by piece, I was building a map of her betrayal. And as the hours ticked by, something strange happened. I stopped feeling heartbroken. I stopped feeling like a victim. I felt dangerous.
The day of the dinner party was ordinary in every way that mattered. That was the point. We'd been invited weeks ago by one of her colleagues, someone she often mentioned in passing, someone I had no reason to dislike. It was one of those obligatory get-togethers, a mix of coworkers, friends, and spouses mingling over wine and polite laughter. The kind of thing we'd done dozens of times before. The kind of thing that should have been safe. But I wasn't going there for the food or the company. I was going there to set fire to the image she'd worked so hard to curate. She got ready like she always did, humming softly as she applied her makeup in the bathroom mirror. I watched her from the doorway, and for a moment, I was struck by how effortlessly beautiful she was, how easily she could disarm me even now. But the memory of those late-night messages,
those photos she'd sent him burned through my hesitation like acid. "Do I look okay?" she asked, turning her head slightly, her earrings catching the light. "You look perfect," I said, and I meant it. But it wasn't a compliment, it was an observation. She was perfect, perfectly rehearsed, perfectly composed, perfectly capable of deception. On the way there, she scrolled through her phone, smiling faintly at something on the screen. I kept my hands tight on the steering wheel, knuckles white. She didn't notice. The house was warm and inviting, full of chatter and clinking glasses. She slipped into hostess mode instantly, laughing with colleagues, charming strangers. I stuck to the edges of the room, nursing a drink, pretending to be the introverted husband content to let his wife shine. Nobody noticed me, and that was exactly what I wanted. He was there too. Of course he was. The dream man. I recognized him instantly, though I'd never seen him in person. He was taller than I expected, with that kind of easy charisma that makes people lean in when he talks. He smiled at her across the room, and she smiled back. A subtle, private exchange that might have gone unnoticed by anyone else. When I saw it, I saw everything. I waited until dessert to make my move. By then, the room was buzzing with the soft haze on wine and sugar, the conversation flowing easily. I stood up in glass in hand and cleared my throat. "Sorry to interrupt," I said, with the smile that felt too tight on my face. "I just wanted to say a few words about my wife." She looked at me, startled, but she masked it quickly. "Oh, honey, this isn't necessary." But I was already speaking. "She's incredible. Smart, beautiful, charming, everything a man could ask for. I've always been proud to be her husband, proud to stand beside her." There were polite smiles around the table, a few nods. Someone murmured, "That's so sweet." And I think it's only fair that all of you know just how extraordinary she is. The room shifted. My tone had changed and they felt it. She felt it too. Her smile faltered. I pulled up my phone. "You see, she's not just a brilliant wife and colleague. She's also an incredible actress, a master of secrets. And in honor of that talent, I'd like to share a little performance she's been starring in for the last few months." Gasps, nervous laughter. She reached across the table, her voice slow and sharp. "Put it away." But I didn't. I tapped the screen, and the first message lit up in the dim room. Her words to him. Her photos, the kind she'd sworn were just for me. I swiped, and another message appeared, and another, a trail of betrayal they'd bear for everyone to see. The room went dead silent. He, the dream man, shifted uncomfortably in his seat, his face pale. Someone coughed. Someone else muttered, "Oh my God." She reached for my hand, her voice trembling. "Please, stop." But I didn't stop. I read one of her messages aloud, my voice breaking only slightly. "I've never felt this alive." "That's what you wrote to him. Not to me. Not to the man you married. To him." Her eyes filled with tears, the perfect mask she wore so effortlessly cracked. And for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. "You want to talk about being alive? I've been a ghost in my own life while you lived out your fantasy. So tonight, I'm taking my life back. You don't get to lie to me anymore. You don't get to humiliate me in private and smile in public like nothing's wrong." Someone tried to intervene, a friend, maybe, or a coworker, but I raised a hand. "No, let her sit in this. Let him sit in this. Everyone here should know what kind of people you are." Her tears spilled over, streaking her carefully applied makeup. He wouldn't meet my eyes. I dropped the phone on the table, and the screen went dark. "Enjoy your evening," I said, my voice low and steady, and I walked out. Just like that. The cool night air hit me like a slap. My heart was pounding, my head shaking, but I felt lighter, like I'd
finally opened a window in the suffocating room. I didn't wait for her to follow me. I knew she wouldn't. Not tonight. Maybe not ever. I got in the car, started the engine, and drove away. The laughter and chatter from the house faded into the background, replaced by the quiet hum of the road. For the first time in months, I felt something close to peace. Not happiness, not that, but the kind of peace that comes from choosing yourself over the person who broke you. That night, she didn't come home. Neither did he. And that silence, the one I dreaded for so long, felt almost like freedom.
The fallout came faster than I'd expected. One message, one picture, one well-timed post was all it took to unravel everything she'd built around her secret life. By the next morning, she was a ghost in the house we'd shared. She came through the front door with her hair still damp from a hurried shower somewhere else, her eyes wide when she saw me sitting at the table, phone in hand. She didn't even need to ask if I knew. Her bag slipped off her shoulder as if it was too heavy to carry anymore. She opened her mouth to say something, maybe to deny it, maybe to explain, but the words got stuck in her throat. I didn't say anything either. Just turned the screen toward her, a screenshot of her messages with him, the ones I'd leaked to the group chat that included half our closest friends. The air between us thickened, full of all the things neither of us wanted to say out loud. Her face went pale. She didn't cry, didn't beg. She just deflated, like all the fight had gone out of her. I'd imagined yelling, smashing things, her throwing herself at my feet. But what I got was worse. Quiet acceptance. She didn't even look surprised. She just whispered, "So it's over then," as if we'd both been counting down to this moment all along. I stood up, not trusting myself to speak, grabbed my jacket. "You should pack your things," I muttered, my voice hoarse from all the words I hadn't said. She nodded, eyes glassy, and disappeared into the bedroom. For the next hour, I sat in my car outside, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. I thought I'd feel powerful. I thought I'd feel vindicated, but all I felt was empty. Betrayal burns hot at first, but once the fire's gone, it leaves behind cold ashes. By the time I went back inside, she'd already packed a suitcase. She sat on the edge of the bed, her hands folded in her lap, waiting for me to tell her to leave. I wanted to scream, to demand why she'd chosen him, why I wasn't enough. Instead, I just said, "Go." She flinched like I'd slapped her. She picked up her suitcase, walked past me without a word, and closed the door behind her. I thought that would be the end, but endings aren't that clean. Within days, our friends chose sides. People I'd known for years sent me awkward texts, checking in, while carefully avoiding her name. Some of them unfollowed her on social media. Others sent her messages of support behind my back. It was messy, public, humiliating. And worst of all, he didn't even seem to care. I ran into him once at a grocery store. He had the audacity to smile at me like we were still friends, like I hadn't watched my life collapse because of him. My hand twitched, wanting to smash his face into the aisle of cereal boxes behind him, but instead, I just walked past. Because revenge wasn't about bruises, it was about scars. At home, the silence was deafening. I'd moved her things into boxes, shoved them into the garage, but the house still smelled like her perfume. Every room felt like a photograph of a life that no longer existed. I started sleeping on the couch because the bed was too big, too cold, too empty. Nights were the worst. I'd scroll through our old pictures, trying to figure out when exactly she'd stopped loving me. Was it a slow drift, or had she made that choice in one instant? A decision she never told me about. Sometimes I'd catch myself replaying memories like an investigator at a crime scene, looking for clues I'd missed, her new perfume, her late nights at work, the way she started locking her phone. It was all there. I'd been blind. One night, while staring at an empty wine glass on a coffee table, I realized something important. This wasn't just about her betrayal. This was about me. about the part of me that was so comfortable, so sure of her love, that I'd stopped noticing when she started slipping away. That realization hurt more than her affair, but it also lit a spark in me. I started going out again, not to bars or parties, but just out. Long drives, walks at midnight. I needed to breathe air that wasn't filled with a ghost. I joined a boxing gym. I hadn't thrown a punch in years, but I wanted to feel something other than grief. The first time my fist connected with the heavy back, I felt alive again, in a way that I hadn't in months. Slowly, I began reclaiming my house. I took down our pictures, boxed them up. I bought a new set of sheets, ones she'd never slept on. I painted the bedroom also a different color. Every small change was like pulling a thorn out of my skin. But she wasn't gone. Not really. I'd see her car parked at his apartment when I'd drive past. Her laughter ringing in my memory like a song I couldn't forget. She'd text me sometimes, "Can we talk?" I never replied, because I knew if I heard her voice, I might let her back in. One night, I saw her name flashed on my phone again. This time, I opened the message. It was just 3 words. "I miss you." I started it for a long time. My thumb hovered over the keyboard, itching to type something back, but instead, I locked my phone, tossed it on the couch, and went to bed. Because missing someone doesn't mean they deserve to come back. And I was starting to believe I deserved better.
It's strange how healing doesn't feel like triumph. It feels like exhaustion. Months passed and the fire inside me dulled into embers. The house was no longer a museum of our life together. It was mine now, with my fingerprints on every surface. I'd replaced the couch, bought plants I actually remembered to water, and filled the fridge with food I liked instead of meals I'd learned for her sake. Yet, even with all these changes, the nights still felt too long. Healing isn't about forgetting, it's about learning to live with the memory without letting it eat you alive. She tried to come back. Of course she did. It started with those late-night texts, then emails. Then she showed up at the house one rainy afternoon, hair plastered to her face, mascara running like ink. She looked so small standing on the porch, like the woman I'd fallen in love with, not the stranger who'd betrayed me. For a moment, my chest ached with something that felt dangerously close to hope. She begged me to listen, said it was a mistake, said he didn't matter, said she'd been lost. She cried so hard her hands shook. I watched her break apart on my doorstep, and for a second, I almost opened the door wider. But then I remembered everything. The messages, the laughter meant for someone else, the smell of cologne that wasn't mine. The nights I'd spent pacing the house, feeling like I was going insane while she was out living a double life. I told her she needed to leave. Her face crumpled and she whispered, "Please." But I'd run out of forgiveness. I closed the door, locked it, and leaned against it until I heard her footsteps fade. That sound, the rain swallowing her sobs, was the first time I felt truly free. The divorce papers were signed a month later. Clean, cold, final. She didn't fight it, and neither did I. Our friends split into camps, some saying I'd been too harsh, others saying I'd been too merciful. It didn't matter. I wasn't living for their approval anymore. One evening, I drove out to that same bridge where I'd stood months earlier when everything felt like it was crumbling. The carvings were still there. Names etched by hands that believed in forever. I touched one of the grooves, tracing the letters, and realized I no longer felt bitter. Just tired. Tired but alive. A man I barely recognized stared back at me from the reflection in the water. Stronger, colder, but free.
I didn't post about the breakup online. I didn't tell my side of the story to anyone outside my small circle. I didn't need revenge to feel whole. My revenge was simple. I had survived. Months later, I saw her again. Not in person, but online. A picture of her smiling with someone new. My heart didn't race, my hands didn't shake. I just grew past. That's when I knew I'd won. Because healing isn't loud, it's quiet. It's the calm after the storm. And if you've ever been betrayed, you know this: survival itself is the loudest statement you can make. So I stood there on that bridge, watching the water move beneath me, feeling the weight of everything I lost and everything I'd gained. Then I turned, walked away, and didn't look back. But here's the thing. No one tells you about stories like this. When someone betrays you that deeply, the echoes of it stay forever. You learn to carry them, to turn them into armor. Would I love again? Could I trust again? Maybe. Maybe not. But for the first time in months, I wasn't afraid of the answer, because I'd rather stand alone than ever be with someone who could lie with that much ease. And if you've made it this far, tell me, would you have forgiven her, or would you have done the same?